If you heard there was going to be a prequel, sequel, or even a spin-off to a beloved franchise, what would you rather hear from the creators? That they're fans of the franchise and they want to do it justice? Or would you rather hear the people responsible for making it have no connection because they've never even seen it whatsoever? Because that's what we're getting with the new Disney Plus Star Wars show, The Acolyte. This article from Comic Book Resources is talking about an interview with Leslye Headland, the showrunner for The Acolyte. And in this interview, Headland said that she specifically hired someone who had never actually watched any Star Wars property prior to being hired on for The Acolyte. I just thought it would be good to have the perspective of a person that had literally never seen Star Wars until she was in the room, Headland said, explaining the decision. And the writer said to me, "Why do you want me in this room? I've never seen Star Wars. I have no idea. I think there's a dog in it, but I don't know anything." And I was like, first of all, you're an incredible writer, but that's why I want you here. I want you to be questioning the narrative.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
On the surface, this doesn't sound like a bad idea. You know, you bring in someone that can get a fresh perspective on things who doesn't necessarily know the lore behind Star Wars. But still, I think you're kind of starting out on the wrong foot when your goal is to try to appease people who aren't fans of Star Wars. Because when you're making a Star Wars show, then the goal should be to try to appease the existing fan base. And if you can actually bring in additional fans to it, then that's all the better. But it seems like they're kind of taking the wrong approach to all this by saying that we want to actually appease people who aren't fans of Star Wars, because it suggests that they're not actually interested in the existing fan base, but are more interested in the new fan base that they can be creating. But if Leslye Headland is actually honest and saying that they're actually just looking for someone to make sure that the story makes sense to people who aren't existing fans of Star Wars, well, then doing this is completely unnecessary too, because studios do their test screenings and they can screen the test audiences specifically for people who haven't seen Star Wars before, just to make sure that the story actually makes sense to them. So I'm not really buying this excuse that Leslye Headland wanted a fresh perspective. I think what she's trying to do is make a Star Wars show for people who aren't fans of Star Wars, which is not a good sign starting out. But also, I think they're trying to push that DEI agenda with this, because if you actually look at the writer's room for this upcoming show, The Acolyte, you can see it's obviously a very diverse mix of people. I don't know which one of these writers is the one that Leslye Headland brought in who hasn't seen Star Wars before. She just said it was a female, so there's a lot of females in this writer's room, so it could have been any one of them, but I don't think this is a good sign. And the lore is very important when it comes to Star Wars, because there's a lot of people pointing out the certain things in the trailer that we saw that really might not line up with the actual canonical Star Wars series that we all know. Here's a tweet from Star Wars Theory, the biggest Star Wars YouTube channel on the platform, and this was his reaction to the Acolyte trailer when that was released. "Everyone in the Acolyte who sees a red lightsaber has to die. If they don't, prequel canon breaks. Maul was the first Sith to be seen in 1,000 years. We'll see. Maybe it'll be like Rogue One situation where they all get offed." And some people have pushed back on this and saying just because someone has a red lightsaber doesn't necessarily mean that they're a Sith. But Star Wars Theory has said basically from the Jedi's perspective, if they saw someone with a red lightsaber, they would just assume that they were a Sith, because even though Maul was the first Sith seen in 1,000 years, he was essentially the first one who was seen with a red lightsaber in that time frame. So his point still stands, where you pretty much have to kill off everyone who has actually seen this, unless they try to retcon something or whatever and change the canon. And if that's the case, then we'll have to wait and see. But after the trailer was released, it looks like the reaction to that wasn't very positive, because I have that pulled up right here on YouTube, and you can see the like to dislike ratio is not very good for this. And this is kind of be expected for the recent Disney Star Wars stuff, because even the long-standing fans of Disney Star Wars, you know, the people who've been sticking to it this entire time, still have to admit that the stuff that's been coming out in recent years just hasn't been that good. The best stuff that they've actually had on the Disney Plus platform was The Mandalorian, but even then, if you look at the audience scores for season 1 versus season 3, there's been a sharp decline. Even Obi-Wan, which is the most well-known character to get his own live-action show, had decent viewership when compared to other Disney live action Star Wars shows, but still wasn't able to justify getting a second season. And that's despite the fact that this was actually the cheapest live action Star Wars show to date for Disney Plus platform. So this is not a good sign for The Acolyte, because that's a lot more obscure. And when you look at how much they spent on it, it's actually not a good sign. It says right here in this article, we don't know what the full budget for The Acolyte is, but it was reported that they spent $49 million in the pre-production phase of it alone. And some people were speculating that it could probably be around $15 million per episode, which would make it around $170 million. which would put this as the #2 most expensive Disney Plus Star Wars show behind Andor. So this is not a good sign for the Acolyte. And then when you compare that to the likes and dislikes on this, it's looking like this is going to be a show that's dead on arrival, that's really trying to bring in a new breed of Star Wars fan. It's not trying to appease the people who are existing Star Wars fans, but trying to find a new audience for the Disney Plus platform. But I think they're going to fall short on that. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and stay up to date with the latest in entertainment news. And if you haven't already, click that like button and share the video because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.